Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Jefferson's Salute to the Presidents. I'm Thomas Watson, and this is my bobblehead, travel companion, and star of the show, Thomas Jefferson. On this episode, you'll be treated to the sites the two of us have visited associated with our 27th president, the larger-than-life William Howard Taft. So if you're ready, please sit back, maybe grab some of Taft's favorite food like bonbons, and enjoy the show. Oh, wait, Big Bill also loves steak, and possum and taters, and terrapin soup, and the fat bastard nearly put lobsters on the endangered species list. Let's face it, Taft didn't miss many meals. With that said, we hope you enjoy the show. William Howard Taft was born on September 15th, 1857, in this modest two-story home that was built 12 years earlier in the Cincinnati suburb of Mount Auburn. Alphonso Taft, William's dad, bought this house and its accompanying 1.82 acres on June 13th, 1851 for $10,100. Young William Taft in 1863 at age 6. While growing up in this house, young William was a well-behaved child and usually acted as referee in fights between his brothers. As well-behaved as he was, Taft joined other Mount Auburn youths in stone-throwing warfare against a rival gang from Walnut Grove. William was an avid baseball player during his youth. He was a good second baseman and power hitter, but because of his size, Taft was a poor base runner. As I stood on the front stoop of the Taft home, I thought about another president who once paid a visit to the Tafts before he was elected. It was none other than fellow Ohioan James A. Garfield who had walked through the door behind me to visit Alphonso and Louise Taft. Let's walk in the footsteps of Taft and Garfield and go through the doorway behind me to visit the world of young William Howard Taft and his family. This first room was used as the nursery and was young William's first bedroom. The only original artifact in this room was the fireplace I'm standing on. The rest of the furnishings were period pieces. Even though the artifacts on the dresser were not owned or used by the Tafts, I posed by them anyway because they looked cool. I took a moment to pose in the library, which was located towards the front of the home. In one of the bookcases, I saw two copies of the book Skull and Bones. One was Alfonso's, and the other had belonged to William. Both men attended college at Yale University. It turned out Alfonso was a founding member of the Skull and Bones. The parlor was where the Tafts greeted guests and where the family partied like it was 1899. The Tafts often rolled up the carpet so they and their guests could dance. It turned out William Taft was the second best dancer among all of the presidents. Who was the best? George Washington, the father of our country, could cut a mean rug. I'm standing on Alfonso Taft's desk he used as a lawyer and judge. and of course when he was Secretary of War and the Attorney General under President Grant. This desk was on display in the back bedroom where William Howard Taft was born. The fireplace mantel where I'm posing was located in the first floor back bedroom where William Howard Taft was born on September 15, 1857. While there were no furnishings in this room except for Alfonso's large desk, I knew the fireplace was original to the home when William was born. When our tour of the home had concluded, I posed for one final photo on the stairway that led to the foyer. William Howard Taft lived in the home behind me from his birth through the time he left for Yale in 1874. The building behind me is Woodward High School, which was located about 1.5 miles south of Taft's boyhood home. Although Taft attended school at Woodward High, this building was built between 1907 and 1910 in the footprint of the original high school. While in school, Taft was a good student, always placing at or near the top of his class. At Woodward High, the future president took the college preparatory curriculum. Taft graduated second in the class of 1874 with a four-year grade average of 91.5. Over 30 years after he had graduated, Taft helped lay the cornerstone for this new high school less than 2 years before he took the oath of office as president. In my mind, that meant this building was still a presidential site. I'm nervously standing in front of the tomb, which was built in 1856 as the headquarters of Yale's secret society for students known as Skull and Bones. William Howard Taft followed in his father's footsteps when he was tapped into the Skull and Bones Society during his junior year at Yale. While Taft became a Bonesman in 1878, two other presidents joined the society during their time at Yale. George H. W. Bush joined in 1948, while his son, W., became a member of the secret society in 1968. Taft, while at Yale College in 1878. It was very eerie to stand outside of the Skull and Bones tomb, mainly because I heard the decor inside included skeletons, skulls, coffins, and other items related to death. But nothing was eerie about William Taft's college days as he graduated second, salutatorian, of 132 students in the class of 1878 at Yale. William was 28 when he married 25-year-old Helen Nellie Heron on June 19, 1886, at the home of the bride's parents in Cincinnati. The home behind me was known as the Quarry and was built on a lot given to the newlyweds from Helen's dad as a wedding gift. William's father helped the young couple finance the $6,000 original cost of the three-story home, which was located about a mile from Taft's birthplace. When I made my first visit to the quarry on September 6, 2014, I found the president's former home in a state of disrepair, and that was very disappointing. But when I returned to the site on November 26, 2022, I was happy to discover the place was in the process of being renovated and saved from the wrecking ball. The renovations were all thanks to the home's new owner, Ahmad Ilan Cesar, who was an engineer and knew the place had structural integrity issues with a deteriorated foundation. And while most of the interior was gutted during my visit, Cesar invited me inside where I had the honor of walking in the footsteps of William and Nellie Taft. One of the first interior rooms I visited was the only one with any type of furniture in it. Cesar said the room was likely used by the Tafts as a parlor. Mr. Cesar also said it was believed this room was the Taft's bedroom. Although the bathtub was not original to the home, my photographer placed me there as a symbolic gesture to President Taft's issues of getting stuck in bathtubs. I'm standing on the fireplace mantel in the Taft's bedroom. I assume the fireplace had been in that very room since 1886, when the house was built. William Howard Taft served as a federal judge in several capacities from 1887 to 1900, some of which were appointed by President Benjamin Harrison. In 1900, President McKinley appointed Taft as Governor General of the Philippines, although Taft had hoped to get a seat on the Supreme Court. When Theodore Roosevelt assumed the presidency after McKinley's assassination, he appointed his good friend Taft as the 42nd Secretary of War. The artifact below me is the key to the city of Manila, which was given to Taft on his visit in 1905. I'm standing outside the west wing of the White House. Somewhere behind those doors was the cabinet room, which I had visited on May 17, 2019. Taft served as Secretary of War under Roosevelt from February 1st, 1904 to June 30th, 1908. During that time, Roosevelt talked his friend into running for president during the 1908 election, even though Taft's lifelong ambition was to become Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. This leather chair below me was used by Taft when he served in President Theodore Roosevelt's cabinet as Secretary of War. With Theodore Roosevelt's endorsement, William Howard Taft received 321 electoral votes and defeated Democrat William Jennings Bryan, who garnered only 162 votes. On March 4th, 1909, Taft recited the presidential oath of office in the Senate chamber inside the United States Capitol. The ceremony had been moved indoors because of heavy snow, high winds, and sleet. President Taft with Vice President James Sherman on Inauguration Day, March 4th, 1909. On March 4th, 1909, William Howard Taft used this Bible during his inauguration as our 27th president. It was used again on October 3rd, 1921, when Taft was administered the oath of Chief Justice of the United States. President Taft greeted the public on the east portico before he rode in the inaugural parade. With the behind-the-scenes help from his friend and former President Theodore Roosevelt, the reluctant Taft took up residence in the White House. In May 1909, just 2 months after Taft took office, First Lady Helen Taft suffered a stroke that impaired her speech and limited the movement in her right arm and leg. Over the following year, the president helped his wife learn to speak again. Although Helen's condition improved, she took a less active role in White House affairs after her stroke. First Lady Helen Taft. I'm standing near the side entrance to the Rodef Shalom congregation, which was located a little over a mile east of downtown Pittsburgh. On May 29, 1909, President William Howard Taft walked through the side entrance to my left and delivered a historic speech inside the synagogue. Taft became the first sitting United States president to speak from the pulpit of a Jewish house of worship during a regular Sabbath service. While he didn't announce any new policies during his speech, Taft did make a very noticeable and embarrassing remark when he referred to Rodef Shalom as this beautiful church. Although the landscaping had changed a bit since Taft's visit in 1909, I'm standing on or near the footsteps of the larger-than-life president. Taft, during his visit to Rodef Shalom congregation, May 29, 1909. As I stood on the original ornamental electrolier, I envisioned President Taft standing in front of me. And trust me, at 340 pounds, he was easy to see. I'm at the grand entrance to the historic Mission Inn, which was constructed between 1902 and 1932. Frank Miller's Dream Hotel not only took up an entire city block, but 10 presidents have either stayed at or visited the Mission Inn, including President Taft. On October 12, 1909, President William Howard Taft reluctantly sat in this customized chair Frank Miller had made for him. But the president was not amused and said to Miller, "Did you have to make the chair so large?" When Taft agreed to sit in the chair, he did it under the condition no photographs be taken of him. This was my vision of Taft at the Mission Inn. Not only was the Mission Inn the place where Taft sat in the huge, oversized chair, but it was the site of Richard Nixon's marriage as well. President Taft arrived by train at the old Union Depot in Erie at 9:12 p.m. on Saturday, September 16, 1911. The Old Main at Gannon University was once the mansion owned by Erie entrepreneur Charles Hammett Strong. After he attended a banquet held in his honor at the Majestic Theater, Taft was escorted to the Strong home where he spent 2 nights. At one point during Taft's stay, a rumor took flight that put the president in an unflattering light. It was a hot and humid day when Taft decided to draw himself a bath in one of the mansion's many ivory tubs. Legend has it the rotund Taft lowered himself into the lavender-scented water. He soon became stuck in the tub and couldn't get out. President Taft with the Strong family during his visit on September 16, 1911. During his visit in 1911, Taft told reporters, "It has been a great pleasure to meet the people of Erie. I am glad to have been the first president to visit this interesting and enterprising city." Taft must have forgotten that President McKinley had delivered a speech at Union Station on September 4th, 1901. While on his way to Buffalo, McKinley was shot 2 days later. Once inside the mansion, I stood on the elaborate wooden handrail of the staircase and envisioned President Taft as he waddled up the stairs to his room. The beauty of the mansion's interior was breathtaking, and the fact that a president once walked in this great hall made it even better. Rub-a-dub-dub, Fat Taft stuck in the tub. I had to pinch myself while inside the parlor. I've never seen so much 14-karat gold leaf decor in my life. In my mind, I believe the table I'm standing on was likely in the parlor when Taft had visited. The parlor was unbelievably stunning. No wonder Taft enjoyed visiting so much. The ornate carved wooden furnishings in the main hallway made it seem as though I was standing on the grand staircase of the RMS Titanic. Ironically, Taft made one of his visits to this house just 5 months after Titanic struck the iceberg and sunk in the North Atlantic. The alleged Taft White House bathtub, 1911. During Taft's single term in office, New Mexico and Arizona were admitted to the Union in 1912. Taft was the first president over the 48 contiguous states. Those would be the last states to join the Union for the next 47 years, when Alaska and Hawaii became states in 1959. If you're wondering what Taft's biggest claim to fame was during his time in the White House, think of the federal income tax all of us have had to pay over the years. Even though Lincoln started the federal income tax to help fund the United States during the Civil War, Congress repealed it in 1871. Then along came Taft, and in 1909, the 16th Amendment was passed, and we've been stuck paying federal income tax ever since. During his term, Taft fell out of favor with Theodore Roosevelt, but he wouldn't step aside in 1912 when TR wanted to become president again. Although Taft was the Republican nominee, which forced Roosevelt to form the Bull Moose Party, both lost the 1912 election to Woodrow Wilson. Out of a job and with no government pension, Taft delivered lectures around the country. The building behind me was constructed in 1912 for the Kitchie Club, which was established in 1883 and is the oldest incorporated club in the state of Minnesota. On February 10, 1920, former President Taft came to Duluth to give a lecture at the First United Methodist Church in town. Before the lecture and a tour of Duluth, Taft arrived at the Kitchie Club for lunch, and it's likely he didn't settle for a club sandwich. I love to stand in the footsteps of our presidents, especially when there is photographic evidence. Taft at the Kitchie Club with two friends, February 10th, 1920. A little over 16 months after William Howard Taft had dinner at the Kitchie Club behind me, President Warren G. Harding appointed Taft as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. On June 30th, 1921, which was the day he was appointed, the United States Senate confirmed Taft as Chief Justice. To date, William Howard Taft is the only person to have served as U.S. President and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, William Howard Taft. The majestic Lincoln Memorial behind me started with a groundbreaking ceremony on February 12, 1914. As president, Taft signed the 1911 act that created a commission to secure plans and designs for the memorial. The Lincoln Memorial was dedicated by Chief Justice Taft on May 30th, 1922, with President Harding and Robert Todd Lincoln in attendance. Taft, Harding, and Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial Dedication Ceremony, May 30th, 1922. During his time in Washington as Supreme Court Chief Justice, Taft lived in this house, which was built in 1911 in the Kalorama neighborhood of D.C. Due to his failing health, Taft resigned from the Supreme Court on February 3rd, 1930. For the rest of that month, Taft could barely speak and he suffered from hallucinations. Gravely ill, William Howard Taft was photographed at his home in February 1930. In the late afternoon of March 8, 1930, William Howard Taft died in his sleep inside this house at the age of 72. While no last words were recorded, it's believed Taft's cause of death was from heart disease and high blood pressure. During my visit to the Taft house on July 18, 2014, I couldn't get onto the property because the house was the official embassy of Syria, and just weeks earlier, top Syrian diplomats had been expelled due to suspected terrorist ties. Shortly after his death, the remains of President Taft arrived at the U.S. Capitol, where he laid in state for 3 days in the rotunda. President Taft lying in state in the U.S. Capitol, March 11, 1930. I'm in the center of the Capitol's rotunda where President Taft's casket was positioned from March 8th to 11th, 1930. On March 11th, Taft's coffin was transported by caisson to All Souls Church for a simple funeral service before the president was taken to Arlington National Cemetery for burial. Taft's funeral procession as it left the Capitol, March 11th, 1930. On March 11th, 1930, President William Howard Taft was laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery. Taft became the first president buried in Arlington. On May 25th, 1943, 3 days after her death, Helen Taft was buried alongside her husband. The 14-foot tall mahogany granite monument I'm standing on cost the family $10,000 and was placed on Taft's grave in 1932. I'm standing on the small footstone at the grave of William Howard Taft. The president's grave is located in close proximity to the final resting place of Robert Todd Lincoln, who died nearly 4 years before Taft. Well, that's it for our show about the life of President William Howard Taft. Did you put on a few pounds while watching this episode? I know I did. Please do us a favor and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our episodes. And while you're at it, smash that like button below. And if you want to see more pictures and read additional stories about our travels, please check out my blog at eyesofjefferson.com. Our next show will feature the bobbleheads tribute to our 28th president, Woodrow Wilson. I'll cut the fat and mention this will be a show you won't want to miss. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Jefferson's Salute to the Presidents. So long.